بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وبعد. All praise due to Allah and His praise and blessings and peace be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today we'll be speaking about the second hadith in the book of zuhd wal-wara. And this chapter, zuhd wal-wara, is part of another main chapter in the book of Bulugh al-Maram called Al-Jami'. Az-zuhd wal-wara, we said last week, az-zuhd is to avoid which will not benefit you in the akhirah. And al-wara is to avoid what it might harm you in the akhirah or be harmful. Az-zuhd huwa tarku ma la yanfa' wal-wara tarku ma yadur or ma qad yadur. The second hadith that Imam Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned here, hadith in al-Bukhari, where Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, and he said, وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تعس عبد الدينار والدرهم والقطيفة إن أعطي رضي وإن لم يعط لم يرضى وإن لم يعطى لم يرضى. أخرجه البخاري. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said, cursed is he. Ta'isa, cursed is he, could be. But also ta'isa, it means a person who will live in misery. A person we will constantly in losses, like a loser. And a person who constantly unhappy, unfortunate, always things going wrong in his life. So that means ta'isa abdul dinar. So the word ta'isa is way more powerful than just saying cursed is he. Who is the slave of the dinar? The slave of dinar, and dinar here is basically the currency that's made of gold, the slave of the gold. And the slave of the dirham, and the dirham is made of silver, so the slave of the gold and silver. And the slave of ta'isa abdul dinar, ta'isa abdul dirham, wal qatifa. Al qatifa, he translated here as the clock bordered with silk. It's a type of the robe, the veil, scarf, a garment, a fancy garment made of silk, fluffy and nice, very soft, which shows a luxurious type of lifestyle. If that person is giving anything, he would be satisfied. Anything from this worldly life. But if he is not giving anything, he is displeased. Sakhit. Not only displeased, but will be angry, frustrated. All these words can be understood from the word sakhit. Al-Bukhari also, there is another narration for Al-Bukhari. He added another word, ta'isa abdul qatifa, ta'isa abdul khamisa. He added the word khamisa. And what is al-khamisa? Al-qatifa is that silky, fancy, expensive type of garment or garment. Al-khamisa is the opposite. It's usually a cloth, black cloth, have two lines, okay? At the border of its width, and it is made of bad quality and a cheap, very cheap. So that person is a slave to the gold and the silver, slave to the fancy, luxurious life, but also slave to al-khamisa, which is a cheap type of cloth, which is you can buy with a little bit. In another word, that means he's a slave of the money, slave of the wealth, regardless if it's a lot or not. A person who cares so much about this worldly life and it become his main goal in life. These two examples means. In u'tiya minha, if he's giving from this dunya, will be happy. Whatever he's giving, that's make him happy and pleased with Allah. U'ti, given. Who's giving him? Allah. And وَإِن لَمْ يُعْطَى, and Allah did not قَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give him much of this dunya, will be angry, frustrated, because why I'm not giving, why I'm not rich, why I'm not like this person, why I am still, poor, why I'm not having this and that, will be angry. And angry at who? At Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is another narration for this hadith, came in Sahih al-Bukhari as well. Ta'isa abdu dinar. Ta'isa, as I said earlier, the word ta'isa, kata'iba, and also you can say by ta'asa. Ta'isa wa ta'asa. You can say both. And it means halaka wa khasar. A loser or cursed or doomed, okay? And it's a dua, or it is a statement. Is it a dua that the Prophet ﷺ making against such people, or Allah, the Prophet ﷺ telling us a statement? Al-ulama rahimahullah said both. He making dua and telling us the reality of those people. He asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to punish such people who are the slave of gold and silver, slave of this dunya, slave of materialistic things. Those who are not pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless they are given, and they have no trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom and decree. That's why they get angry and frustrated at Allah if they are not given from the dunya. And the only reason they are angry and frustrated, because their heart is only attached to the dunya. If their heart not attached to the dunya, they wouldn't be mad if they did not get anything from it. And in regard to this, I just want to share with you what Salim ibn Abdullah said to the king of the Umayyads at that time. When the king walked into Mecca and he saw Salim making tawaf, he came and he started walking beside him, and he said, "Ya Salim, I heard great things about you. Ya Salim, why don't you make any request of me and I will meet your requests? You have debt. Do you need money? Do you need support? Do you need help with anything? Just ask me, whatever you want." Then he said, "Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you think it would be appropriate for me to be in his house and I ask someone else?" Allahu Akbar. Now they are in al-Haram, inside the Masjid al-Kaaba. He said, "I am in his house and I ask someone else." Like, can you imagine if I am in your house and he asks another person, "Can you get me water? Can you get me this? Or can I have that?" And it is your house. Not appropriate. You ask the owner of the house. So Amir al-Mu'mineen felt shame, and he waited outside for him until the midday. And by that time, Salim left al-Haram, and he saw him out, waiting for him outside. Then he said, "Ya Salim, now you are outside his house. Ask me and I will give you whatever you want." He said, "Ya Amir," and I want you to listen carefully. He said, "Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you gonna give me from matters related to this dunya or the next life?" He said, "Only this dunya. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only he have appointed me as a distributor, just a distributor of this wealth." And that's a nice of the king to say that. He said, "I'm just a distributor of the wealth of this worldly life. Just ask me and I will give you some of it." Then he said, "Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, so this is something you don't own it?" He said, "No. Allah owns it. Then he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I never ask Allah, who owns this dunya, anything from it. You think I will ask you? Yani the one who owns it, I never ask him anything from it. It never was in my heart. I'm happy with whatever I have, and I'm not looking for anything from it. I'm just waiting for the akhirah, for the next life. Definitely, this is not an easy status to reach. You know, in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, by choice, he chose sallallahu alayhi wasallam not to have much from this dunya. Yani when you read about the Prophet ﷺ, how he lived literally in poverty, in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam didn't have food and anything to cook for 3 months. In Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you know, did not have much of money. That's why his wives at one point, when they found that in Nabi can be rich, in Nabi sallallahu can possess money, but he chose not. Sa'alu Rasulullah nafaqa. They asked the Prophet ﷺ if he would appointed money for them, like, you know, like a monthly thing, he gave it to them. So he will give them money on a regular basis. And the Nabi ﷺ was very clear. He said, either you live this lifestyle that I have, or you can go. Allah will replace you with other women who will be happy with my lifestyle. And Nabi ﷺ did not say that because he's stingy, he's miser. Hashah wa kalla, he's far away from such things. He's the most generous man. But then Nabi ﷺ did and said this to his wife ﷺ, because this is the lifestyle, this is the heart that has no attachment to the dunya, no interest in it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not expose him to this great wealth for him to gain it and to accumulate it. And one of the things that I say, why Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam wasn't rich man? For many reasons. One of it, that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam wasn't rich because no one ever can claim in the future that in Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gain a materialistic benefits from his da'wah. So someone later on will say, yeah, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam made money because of, you know, his position or his status. Nobody can make that claim. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived and died poor. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not benefit materialistic from this da'wah anything. And that's the case of many scholars who avoided rulers, avoided high positions, high paid positions, just because they don't want people to think that I'm personally benefiting from my position as an imam, as a da'i, as a sheikh. In Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam choose that lifestyle because in Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want in Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be distracted with anything from the dunya. You know, if you have business and you have wealth, you became distracted. You have to, you know, care for it. I have a friend of mine who asked me for an advice. He said, Sheikh, alhamdulillah, I have a very good salary. I live very comfortable life, way than many people. But I work a lot. I'm a physician and I work a lot. And I have great interest in Sharia and studying the deen and giving lectures and stuff like that. So I decided to start a business, to hire more doctors, work for me. And in this case, I will have this business, which will give me time to invest in reading and researching and fulfilling my interest in Islamic studies. So I said to him, Doctor, you are dreaming. A business means you became more busy. He said, Sheikh, I'll have people work for me. I said, no, Habibi. When you became a business owner, you became occupied with that business. It takes so much of your time. It doesn't free you. It's actually enslave you. And it makes you attach more to the dunya. Less than a year He came back to me and he said, you were not 100% right, you were 1,000,000% right. Before, if I have 1 hour, no, now I have zero, nothing. More money doesn't mean like, more, unless you became filthy rich. Those who are filthy rich, as they say, I don't like this expression, but those who are extremely rich, who basically, their money grow while they are sitting doing nothing. That's when you those people who you remember when, what is his name? The owner of Microsoft, Bill Gates. Somebody asked him in an interview, he said, so can you tell me about your wealth? How much your wealth reached now? He said, before the questions or after the question? In these few seconds, 30 seconds, so my wealth grow. That when you reach that, that's when you have time, in your hand. But before that, don't think money make you busy. There is a say I heard the elders where I grew up saying. They say, إبليس لو عنده تجارة اشتهر عنا يعني انشغل عنا. They said, Iblis, we wish that Shaitan has business, because if Shaitan has business to run, he would leave us alone. He will be busy with the business, and human beings will be saved from him. So even the Shaitan, with his ultimate goal is to focus on human beings, if he had a business, he would have left his goal in life, which is to mislead people to run the business. So when you have a business, you became so distracted. So going back to the point, he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I never ask anyone anything from this dunya to the one who owns it, because he wants to have his attached to him. Also going back to the Prophet ﷺ, as I talked about earlier, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted Nabi ﷺ to be 100% fully focused only in da'wah and not on business and running business and things of that nature, or looking after his wealth. So this lifestyle where you don't have interest in the dunya, this is not an easy thing. That's not an easy thing. Ta'is abd al-dinar. And Nabi Sallallahu praying against and telling us that the person who is a slave of a dinar and a dirham. So there is another narration, Nabi kept repeating that dua, Ta'isa abd al-dinar, Ta'isa abd al-dirham, Ta'isa abd al-khamisa, Ta'isa abd al-khamila. Repeated that dua several times against a person who is slave to gold, to silver, to wealth, to materialistic clothes. In u'tiya minha radi, if given from it, will be pleased. If not, you will be displeased. Ta'isa wa intakas. Prayed again, ta'is. Let it be loser. When takas, his affairs is all messed up. وَإِذَا شِيكَ فَلَنْتَقَشْ. Even when a splendor go inside in him, he wouldn't be able to pick it out or take it out. A thorn just stick inside his toes or fingers, he wouldn't be able to, it will go so deep that he will not be able to pull it out. In another word, all kind of bad things happen to him and he can't protect himself from it. And the other side, he said, طُوبَى لِعَبْدٍ آخِذٌ بِعِنَانِ فَرَسِهِ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. طُوبَى, a great reward for a person who, on his horse, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَشْعَثٌ رَأْسُهُ مُغْبَرَّةٌ قَدَمَاهُ. His hair is messy, his feet is dusty. He doesn't have even money to buy shoes. إن كان في الحراسة كان في الحراسة. وإن كان في الساقة كان في الساقة. إن استؤذن لم يؤذن له وإن شفع لم يشفع وإن شفع لم يشفع. If that person in an army, he is on the horse leading the charge, or he was back in the end of the army bringing water, taking care of the wounded one, he's doing the same work and job the nurses do. So he's not an actual warrior. Or a person who will be guarding in the night just to guard the army, not to participate in the battlefield. As you know, this is like the elite member, those on the horsemen, who's like fighters. Then you have the guards. Then you have the people who are not combatant individuals. There are levels, but the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, praise all of them, because when you doing such job, you putting your life in risk, you keeping the dunya behind you, and you basically doing something greater than your own, putting your own life at risk or at service for people. Then in Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, such a person who nobody care for him. If he would need a permission to go to visit a king or a famous person, nobody will give him permission. If he would intercede for someone, nobody will care for her intercession because he has no value in people's eyes. But that person, he might be, in Allah's eyes, is a very valuable person. So this hadith, very clear, talking about az-zuhd in particular. The previous one about al-wara' focus, this is az-zuhd, which is you avoid what will not be beneficial. Your heart is not attached to the dunya. You're not enslaved by the wealth of this dunya or the materialistic things of this life. His heart is attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he's so pleased with whatever was given to him by Allah, or whatever not been given to him, he's happy. Versus the one who have no zuhd, the one who is his heart is not attached to the one whose heart attached to the dunya will be angry if he doesn't get anything from the dunya. Be angry at Allah and dissatisfied and show a level of frustrations and never content with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have for him. Why? Because there is no zuhd in the heart of that person. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us. Let's drive some of that, or focus some of the benefits and lessons from this hadith. I think the first lessons we learn from the hadith, Abdul Dinar wa Abdul Dirham, a slave of dirham, a slave of dinar, slave of gold and silver, slave for dollars and stock markets, a slave of wealth, a slave of the money and the wealth. Money and wealth is an excellent servant and a very corrupt master. Money is a tool, and the moment you became a slave of the money, you are in losses. Because the day you become slave to the money, you become slave to the one who has the money. The moment you become slave to the wealth, you are a slave to the one who pay you. And the moment you are only see this wealth in the hand of Allah, you are a slave to Allah. Your provision comes from Allah. You don't have my provision as a boss or as a company or whatever. No, my rizq and my provision comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why my servitude is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why al-ubudiyyah, Islam make people free from being a slave to anything except Allah. And the moment you became a true slave of God, you're a free man from any aspect of slavery. We know slavery is something bad, looking at history and what this word means, but when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no, it's a true meaning of freedom, the servitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because I literally owned by Allah. I literally created and owned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maliki yawmiddin. Al-Malik subhanahu, the king who owns, and Malik also means he owns everything. It belongs to him. So that's why Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said about those who ran away from being slave to Allah, they ended up what? هربوا من الرق الذي خلقوا له فبلوا برق النفس والشيطان. They run away from being a slave to Allah and they ended up slave to the shaitan, slave to the desires, slave to the desires, and basically slave to the wealth, to the money, to the job, to the sexual desires, to the fame, to the, you name it. So we have to understand that this hadith is reminding us that wealth always should be in our hand, not in our heart. Wealth always seen as, and money should be not a goal, but a means. And the moment it becomes a goal, it's a problem. But when the wealth is a means, you're happy. And you're not slave to that, to the gold and silver. This hadith also tells us one of the clearest manifestation of caring so much about dunya and attached to this worldly life is to see how much you're attached to gold and silver and money, and how much you're attached to appearance. That's why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, the slave of al-qatifa wal-khamila, the slave of the clothes and the materials and this silky, fancy type of clothes. A person who cares so much about their look. That shows how much your heart is so much attached to the dunya. I'm not saying you look bad, I'm not saying you don't have money. Because in Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's lifestyle is not something, by the way, we've been asked to copy. We've not been asked to live like the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam with the 3 months no food, when avoiding money completely and avoid this dunya. No. And the proof for that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum did not live that life. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and the best of them like Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman, did not live in that lifestyle. They had food, they cooked food. They were not like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They did not understand that this is something they should do. That was something special for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we learned from that not to be attached, not to be after the dunya. Not to make the dunya take over our heart and this worldly life take over our life. And that's the best of knowledge and the best of effort we have is only giving to materialistic and worldly matters. So one of the things that it will shows how much you're attached to the dunya is see how much you're attached to wealth and money. Is really money means everything to you? Is it about, and if you've been giving, you're happy, you're not giving, you're mad and angry and sad? Is it really about the look? Some people don't care for money, but they care for the look and, the prestige and to impress people. I know people don't have money, but their heart's so attached to the dunya. They spend hours and hours and hours and hours in gym. They measure every muscle in their body, how it looks like, and take pictures and picture themselves and like how they build all these like 6 packs, 8 packs, whatever you want to call it. And how the curve of every muscle in they worship their body. The look, the clothes. Means a lot. I will never forget a young man. I was stuck with that person because we were traveling together from Philadelphia to New York. And at that time I was very new in the country. I will never forget that young man. He went to Saks Avenue in New York and he purchased a t-shirt for $800. And that t-shirt, $800, that is like in 1998, okay? It's like a couple of thousand maybe today. And I couldn't believe the price. And I asked the salesperson, Wallahi Sheikh, if you tell me like, I'll give you money and take it, I will not take it. If you even offer me money, it's so ridiculous. But anyway, $800 for a t-shirt. And I said to the guy, may I ask you, why $800? He said, oh, it's a designer so-and-so, all these like names that you cannot even pronounce, and house of whatever launched this on the last falls, and it is a very unique and this and this and that. And he said, and the thing is also, there's only 15 pieces were made, or whatever number of t-shirts only made by this designer. So your friend will be one of those 15 or 10 people who wear this shirt in the world. And this guy, he was like, oh my God, this is so special. It's all about showing off. Oh my God, you want me to carry a purse that is not a designer? Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. You know, you want me to, you know, just to wear like the same, you know, dress twice? No. The look is like something very special, very means a lot. Here we're not saying halal, haram, but I'm talking about that. These things shows how much really you're attached to the dunya. The more you are into this, the more your heart attached to the dunya. I'm not saying it's haram. That's not my point. My point is for you to understand how much this dunya is in your heart. And I want you to understand that the heart is like a container, have a limited space. So if the dunya occupied most of it, there is only a little bit left for the akhirah. And vice versa. And it's your choice. Another thing that we learn from this hadith, that a person, his or her love to things from this life leads that person ending up a slave to that thing, to that materialistic thing. Reach to the level of ubudiyyah, to be a slave to the money. Slave to your desires. And Islam taught us how to enslave our desires, not to be slaved to our desires. How to control our desires, not to be controlled by our desires. Not animals. Our sexual urge drive us and makes you, you know, I was watching a couple of days ago National Geographic, and I was looking at all, you know, these animals, how they migrate great distance, and you know, in the Christmas Island, where they have millions and millions of the red crabs come and gather, and they the males go through a great deal of dangers. Many of them die in the way, just because the sexual urge and the, you know, what's driving them is basically to mate with the female crabs and to have children. The urge of fulfilling that, you know, or that cycle to complete the cycle. Or these deers, you know, just clashing one another just because one of them will get to basically mate with the female on the herd. Oh my God. I said to myself, you know what? There is people worse than animals. That there is sexual desire. Let them go everywhere, to go so low, to be slave to that desire. Look at people who drink. Look at people who use drugs. How this attachment to these desires, because there is a desire of, you know, being high, relax. Just a desire. It's something that, you know, make you feel like, you know, relax and enjoy yourself, and all this, you know, drinking and the basically the feeling that associated with, alhamdulillah, that we don't know what it feels like. But, you know, by looking and reading and asking the people who drink a lot. But look at what it does, what it do to them. What these desires do to them. Makes them looks like. Humiliating. Just because of few dollars, people willing to do the worst things in life, humiliate themselves, put their life in risk. That's because all became attached to the level of servitude. And it became abd. So be very careful. Why I'm mentioning this and the importance of this hadith, why I'm saying this? Because it might start as just interest. I want to try it once. Then you ended up slave for it. It reached to the level of, I can't live without it. This hadith shows us very interesting point, which is العبودية لغير الله مذلة. Being a slave to other than Allah is nothing but humiliation. That's why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, ta'is, a loser, cursed, doomed, the slave of gold and silver. No matter how much money you have, no matter how much power you have, no matter how much you fulfill this desire, you're a loser. You live in misery. When you read the journeys and the memoirs of famous people, rich, lived and their life, like singers and movie stars, porn stars, beautiful women, famous singers in the West and the East and everywhere. And when the moments of truth comes, and they talk about their life, it's misery. And we know of cases, so many people end up, addicted to drugs and end up committing suicide and things of that nature. Remember this. Being a slave to other than Allah is nothing but humiliation. This dunya humiliate the one who attached to it. For a simple reason. Because a dunya, like it's, from its name you understand it, the value of it. A dunya, what's dunya means? Dunya means the lower. So it's a lower one. So if you attach yourself to it, you immediately go low with it. That's how it is. If that's all what you want, you go down. أيضا, this hadith shows us something very interesting, which is something we should be careful of. إذا تعلق القلب بالدنيا وصل لدرجة التعلق بالرخيص منها. يعني, when you became attached to the dunya, you love this dunya so much, and it became your main focus, your heart not only attached to that silver and gold and fame, even with al-khamisa, with the cheap quality clothes, your heart will be attached to it. Those people who attach to the dunya became attached to the good and the bad and the ugly of it. And that's one of the reasons why a person became so humiliated. You know why? Because you will never be satisfied. It's, sometimes when you have that urge to eat sugary stuff, then you take a bite of a Snickers, you take a Snickers and you take a bite of it, or Kit Kat or Twix, whatever. I hope you don't eat Snickers, but honestly, how humiliating. But you take a bite of chocolate, then you take another one, then you go to candy, then you finish the candy, now you go to the cake and the drinks, and it never stop. The sugar rush keep coming. Dunya's rush is the same. and you go to the cheapest things. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam from this hadith also teaches that when you're a slave to the wealth and to desires, you became also a slave to the one who controlled these desires. Look at those, for example, who follow the fashion. I had one of my students, she used to be a designer in a very famous house of fashion in Canada, in Montreal, work for a company based in Paris. And she told me, this lady, Sheikh, I'll tell you something that, one of the reasons I left this career, because I still remember one year we're sitting and trying to design and to come up with what is next summer will look like, what kind of clothes we want to design for, what's the fashion for the summer of, let's say, was 1999 or something like that, or 2000, let's say, at that time. She said, we're thinking way ahead of time. And that's the question that was asked. Hey, what would you like to see from woman? What part of her body would you like to see? Oh, I like to see this, I like to see that, and everybody's starting to see what the thing that they love to see from women the most. And they start designing around that. And we just take that, fashion, style, and we just follow it. Some guy have no common sense in colors or any good taste, just because you're rich, but just because he was some weirdo in a fashion design house, come up with certain color combinations and comes and said, oh, this is the fashion, and everybody follow him. Slave. Even for things like, you slave to this, you slave to the person who controls it. This hadith also tells us that the person must learn how to do things for the sake of Allah, seeking the reward. And one of the manifestation of attaching to the dunya, that every task you do, if you don't get paid for it, you'll become angry and mad. Or if you pay little, you will become mad and angry. And you wouldn't even do it. And you will not be pleased. But if you paid well, you will do it well. And that's dangerous. That's so dangerous. Especially when it comes to religious things. If I invite someone to give khutbah al-Jum'ah, and first thing he asks me, how much? Lectures, how much? Before even what the lecture is about, what the talk is about. That, and sometimes people who know me enough, or around me long enough, they know that many times I purposely try not to bring the financial issue in the front. Alhamdulillah, I never in my life was a stingy person. But I do this to help people against themselves. So it's not only about the financial compensation. We need to learn and to train ourselves and other people that they need to learn how to do things for Allah. I invited once a person to give a talk at my masjid. And he replied to me and said, Sheikh, he said, thank you for inviting me. If I would come to the masjid, I will give khutbah al-Jum'ah and a talk on Friday night for $1,200. And I will do a Saturday program for $1,700. And if you pay me $2,000, you have unlimited number of talk in the whole weekend. I wrote back to him and said, and Imam Ahmad rahimahullah said, عزيز علي أن أرى رجالا وعد صدورهم القرآن أذابت الدنيا أكبادهم. It's hard for me to see people who their heart, is filled with the Quran, understand the Quran, have the knowledge, but also their souls and their hearts melted by the dunya, or melted over the dunya. It is hard for me to see this. So this hadith, that's why the Prophet said, if you give him financial compensation, he will be happy. If he doesn't get money, he will be angry. We need to learn not to always to be about money. And unfortunately, we're living in a time where, in a place where we're very materialistic, especially when it comes to religious issue and things of service. Not everything I have to put a price tag on it. You know, just you sometimes you need to be just kind, nice. Don't worry about it. Also, from this hadith we learn that al-i'ta' min Allah qadari wa shar'i. In u'tiya minha radi. If Allah gives him, you will be happy. The giving from Allah is two types. Qadari wa shar'i. The giving then related to worldly matters, and giving that related to religious matters. So Allah gives you knowledge. Allah gives you manners. Allah gives you, certain attributes or traits, character traits. Allah gives you, understanding. This all religious things. But also the hadith mainly talk about the worldly things, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you health, wealth. He gives you lineage. He gives you, you born in a place and a citizen of some country different than others. Allah gave you, certain, advantage over others or less than others. Allah gave people certain things from this dunya, which He does not give others. So when we understand that, we understand that this is from Allah. And whatever Allah decreed for them. Same thing, even the giving, it can be religiously. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَلْمِزُكَ فِي الصَّدَقَاتِ فَإِنْ أُعْطُوا مِنْهَا رَضُوا وَإِنْ لَمْ يُعْطَوْا مِنْهَا إِذْ هُمْ يَسْقَطُونَ. If they receive the sadaqah, they will say, oh, happy. If he doesn't receive the sadaqah, he will be making, talks and criticize you, Muhammad, and the deen. Yes, there are certain people we're allowed to give them charity, we're allowed to give them zakah. Certain people we can't. You don't deserve it. That's why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, 3 people Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not talk to them in the day of judgment. And He will talk to them in a matter of honor and pleasing. He will not talk to them. وَرَجُلٌ بَايَعَ إِمَامًا لَا يُبَيْعُهُ إِلَّا الدُّنْيَا. A person who will give allegiance to a president or a king or a leader. Only for the dunya. So if that king or leader give him money, they are happy. And if he doesn't give them money, they will be mad and angry at him. And that's very relevant to our days. Why are you voting for the president? Oh, he gave us tax cut. Oh, that's all what you care about? Oh, he gave us money. Oh, they provide a great social service. They will give social security. They will give free this and free that. That's all why you are, loyal and why you are supporting? Only for the money? Morality means nothing to you? Nothing, no principles that you care for? That's dangerous. And that all because this heart is attached to the dunya so much. That's why if you get it, you're happy. You don't get it, he's angry. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Irda bima qasam Allahu lak takun aghna an-nas." You want to be the most rich person? Be happy with what you have. Don't care about what you don't have. There is one narration of this hadith, but this narration, just to make it ahead of before saying it, this narration is fabricated. There's somebody added something to it. Ta'isa is doomed or cursed or loser, the slave of the gold and the silver. One of the narration called وَتَعِسَ عَبْدُ الزَّوْجَةِ, the slave of the wife. But that's addition is fabricated. But you know, it's same thing. If you're a slave to any human beings, you're losing. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال تعس. تعاسة is the opposite of سعادة. تعاسة is the opposite of happiness. Okay? So that means having the gold and silver and the fancy clothes and fancy lifestyle, it doesn't necessarily mean happiness. It's actually more associated with the opposite. Being not happy, being sad, being depressed, being, all over the place, can't focus. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تلهكم أموالكم ولا أولادكم عن ذكر الله ومن يفعل ذلك فأولئك هم الخاسرون. Who are the losers? The one who've been distracted by their wealth and family. And that distracted them from dhikrullah. Another lesson to wrap it up. الغنى والفقر ليس مناط المدح والذم. Being rich or being poor is not what you will be praised by or criticized because of it. I cannot praise you or criticize you just because you being rich or you being poor. That doesn't make you better or worse, or good or bad, being rich or being poor. And I'm saying this because unfortunately there's people believe that being rich and successful, it means that you are better than those who are not rich and successful. And I was amazed, I was surprised by somebody arguing with me, telling me that he voted for Trump. And I asked, why did you vote for him? He said, because I do believe God loves him. And I said, come on, man, you're a person of faith. How can you say God's love him and he knows nothing about, God, astaghfirullah, about church, or not a faith person, Even recently he was asked if he ever prayed to God for forgiveness. He kind of said no, how can you say that? And he told me, he said, no, we do believe that the reason God loves him, because he's successful. He's rich, he's a successful businessman. Because God will not do that for someone unless God's loved that person. That just messed up. That's just flat wrong. But we might have the opposite. People think being poor, it means that's righteousness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us very beautiful example. He give us Sulaiman, who is an example. So before I give this example, what determines the praising or the criticism? Is the state you are in when you are rich or you are poor. If you are rich and you are thankful and grateful, good. But if you are rich and you're fulfilling your desires, you're ungrateful to Allah, that's bad. So what made you bad person is not being rich, is being ungrateful. Poor, I'm patient and have sabr and I'm satisfied and content. That's what make you worth of praising. Praiseworthy. Allah, when He give the example of Sulaiman, who's a king, rich, powerful, grateful and thankful to Allah. Right after Sulaiman, who came in Surah Sad? Ayub, who's the example of the poor and the patient one. Al-Faqir al-Sabir. And Allah praised both, the rich and the poor. When He said Sulaiman, قال نعم العبد إنه أواب. When He mentioned Ayub after him, He said, وجدناه صابرا نعم العبد إنه أواب. It's the exact same word, the exact same praise. For Ayub and Sulaiman, even though one of them rich and one of them poor. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, and هذا الحديث عند البخاري معلق بصيغة الجزم without the isnad, the full isnad. Al-Bukhari rahimahullah, so it's not part of his Sahih, but it was mentioned in the Sahih. He said, Al-Ghaniyu Shakir mithlu al-Faqir al-Sabir. The grateful, thankful, rich person is equal to the poor, patient person. I don't know if I have time for that or not, but if somebody like Sheikh Kamal, who always liked to dig deeper, ask me this question, Sh.Waleed, we have a grateful, thankful, rich person, and we have a poor, patient person. Who's better? الصابر الفقير أم الغني الشاكر? Sh.Waleed, you're trying to say, oh, the type, they are both good Muslims. Which one is better? Are they equal or one of them better than the others? Al-ulama rahimahumullah said, some of them said, al-faqir al-sabir better, the poor and the patient person better. Some of them said, no, the rich person who is grateful is better. And some said, no, they are equal. And wallahu a'lam, what it looks to me is the rich person who is grateful is better than, status-wise, than the patient poor person. And that's what the choice of Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah as well. And the proof for that in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when the poor among the Sahaba came to him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, saying, Ya Rasulullah, rich people took all the ajr. ذهب أهل الدثور بالأجور والدرجات العلى, and they achieved the highest level in Jannah because of the wealth that Allah have given them. They pray like us, they fast like us, but they have money to spend. We're poor, we don't have. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told them to make dhikr after salah, and they will get. Then the rich people start doing the same dhikr. Then they said, Ya Rasulullah, now we came back to be same. Then the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. This is Allah's favor. He give it to whomever He wants. So that means that favor have risen them. And in the end of the day, I have to be happy and grateful, because this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom and hikmah. And this is an interesting concept that maybe we can talk about more. But one of the things also is important to remember here, that human beings by nature, when they became rich, they became weaker. When you're poor, you have the temptation is not that high. But when you are rich and powerful, temptation is very, very hard. And the temptation goes with this, aligned with the nature of human beings, which is الطغيان إن الإنسان لا يطغى, that human being nature can transgress and go aggressive and fulfill the desires. So that's why when you hold yourself back, that became a great deal of ni'mah and a great deal of reward. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam made dua against the person who his heart attached to the dunya until he became blind and deaf and became a slave to it. Make sure you don't receive the dua from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam against you. Don't be عبد الدينار والدرهم, لأنه قال تعس. In another word, when Allah give you, make sure that you use the money and the wealth I said, as a great servant. I read that day something very interesting. It says, when Allah blesses you financially, don't only raise your standard of living, but raise your standard of giving. Yes. Yeah. You raise your level of giving. Finally, the hadith talk about your heart should not be attached to the dunya. We heard me saying this a lot, or wealth or money, or the people who have the wealth or money. That's true except in one exception. Your heart should be looking at the dunya and the wealth and the people who have the wealth only in the case if you do this because you want this to be a tool for you to do good, a tool for you to be able to accomplish much or to give for the sake of Allah. That's why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he made them equal. Two type of people. And listen carefully to this hadith, and I'll end with this point. Can you imagine Allah, the Prophet put them in the same level, and guess what? See who comes first and mention it. قال لا حسد إلا في اثنتين. You cannot envy someone except for two things. رجل آتاه الله مالا فسلطه على هلكته. Allah gave him wealth, so he using this wealth for the sake of Allah. Yani that's attached, that means you want that. Your heart wants that. You envy people who have wealth and they spend it for the sake of Allah. You would love to have that wealth. You would love to be like them. Then the other person, a person Allah gave him the Quran. Memorize the whole Quran. Sometimes, wallahi ikhwani, when I read this hadith, I see sometimes that we don't see things from the right perspective. Because for a person, if it's a Quran, the whole Quran, or money, Quran. And we'll look at this, are you serious? Money, who cares about? No. If the money is used for the right purpose and the right way, that's something in Nabi Sallallahu give these two examples as something that people should be envied for. And a person that give him the Quran, فهو يقوم به آناء الليل وآناء النهار, reciting it in the night and in the day. These are the two people or two things you can envy people for. But other than that, no. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His names and attributes to make our hearts attached to the dunya, attached to the akhirah, not to the dunya. And to make us always able to control our desires, not to be controlled by our desires. And to be only slave to Allah and free from all materialistic things in this life. And to free our heart from being attached to other than Allah and what He loves. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.